Welcome back. We're talking about intellectual and developmental disabilities. And joining us next is John Nash, Executive Director of the ARC of NC. John, good morning to you.
Hi, how are you doing?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the ARC. What's it all about?
The ARC is a national organization that's been around since the late 40s and early 50s. It's got an interesting history. At the time that the baby boomers and their children were beginning to come out of the public education system, across the board you had parents that said, okay, up until now we knew what our children were doing every day, now what? And there really was not much available to them. And so you had all of a sudden, over the course of 3 or 4 years, parent organizations cropping up across the nation through the early 50s and into the late 60s. These organizations popped up. A number of them coalesced into what today is the ARC, which became an advocacy organization. And so the intent of the ARC really was to help parents find a place and figure out what to do and to help their children, to provide opportunities going forward in their lives, and to, as time has gone by, to really begin to advocate and to open the doors that previously were closed to them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
What kind of advocacy? What are we talking about, and what kind of doors do we need to open?
Well, we do 2 different kinds of advocacy. We have obviously a very large presence that down in Jones Street here in North Carolina at the General Assembly, because there's a lot of laws out there that affect us directly. Anything to do with education, anything to do with health and supports, those are all issues that affect us directly. Medicaid being a big issue here in North Carolina is something that we have a very big stake in. And there have been times when it's been categorized as a way for people to kind of gold brick and take the easy road out until you meet somebody with an intellectual or developmental disability with IDD. All of a sudden you begin to realize that this isn't just somebody taking advantage of the system. This is something this is their life. This provides opportunities for them to work and to provide and to actually give back to the community. If those supports weren't there, in effect, they would become a draw in the system. We find that, and it's been the interesting thing for me, that IDD is not Democrat or Republican, it's not rich or poor, it's not conservative or liberal, pretty much hits everybody. And because of that, as we begin to talk, we're able to get our message out to a lot of people, and particularly to our legislators across the board and on both sides of the aisle, because both sides get it. If we talk about a policy, it's a policy. It's not very exciting. And so we can talk about bottom lines and line items and those types of things, but the minute you talk to a legislator or to somebody in the community and begin to ask them the question, well, do you know somebody with IDD? Well, all of a sudden you start to think about the people that I know. I have family members, I have neighbors, I have friends and relatives, and you begin to start looking at those people, and all of a sudden it takes on a face, and it's a name, and it's a person, and then they begin to get it. It's like, oh, I understand now that the reason you do this and the reason why this is such an important issue is because of those people, and we understand. So we do a lot of that type of work. We also do a lot of advocacy in our own communities and around our own families. Simple things. We just opened up an apartment complex in Chapel Hill. From inception to completion was 10 years. I've spent a lot of years in my previous existence working around construction projects. At one point I worked in Las Vegas and helped produce 1,000 apartment units in 30 days. Something I'm not completely proud of, but 30 days start to finish is pretty amazing.
Time. Yes.
10 years to open up an 8-unit complex is unconscionable.
Why so long?
And at that point, I think the community didn't understand what they were getting into. I think they were concerned about the people that we were bringing in, and are they dangerous, and are they going to be a detriment to our community? And by the time that the powers that be in the city began to understand that, wait a minute, these are people, they're not dangerous. As a matter of fact, they benefit our community. That kind of advocacy is really what we're about, to be able to open up eyes and hearts and minds. And the key to this was, when we had our grand opening here a couple months ago, one of the members, a gentleman that lived just up the street in one of the apartment complexes, came down and he shook the hand of one of these young ladies. She has an IDD, very, very nice young woman, shook her hand and said, "How do you do? I'm your neighbor, and if you folks need any help, you let me know." Now, I was standing next to her father, and as a parent myself, anytime somebody looks after my children when I can't be there, that's an amazing thing. And I watched the fit look on his face, and I watched the look on this young woman's face. That's what it's about. And to be able to advocate in our communities to teach people that, we're not dangerous. As a matter of fact, we benefit the community. We have the ability to open doors that people can't open. And so as an advocacy organization, that's really what the ARC's all about, is to help people understand that sometimes it's a scary thing because we don't know. Our job is to help people understand and to know.
Yeah, so it isn't just dealing with the legislature, it's dealing with just the public and their misconceptions.
Broad across the board. And it's fascinating work because the people I get to work with appreciate in ways that
I can't imagine. I mean, I really can't imagine. From the family members to the individual themselves, their appreciation. Has it impacted you? It must have impacted you on a personal level.
It has. I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. Of all the things that I've done, this is probably the most fulfilling, other than raising my own family. I work with people that appreciate what I do, and they thank me genuinely. I've had people say, "Hey, thank you," and walk away. But the folks that I work with, both those who are impacted directly with the IDD and those of their families that have said thank you, and it's an energized group of people. We do an awful lot with them, and they do an awful lot for us.
Well, my friend, our time is up, and I do genuinely thank you for what you do. For folks who would like to learn more about the ARC and get involved, how can they do that?
You can contact us through our website, www.arcnc.org.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Coming up next, an organization working to enrich the lives of so many kids and adults in our area. Stick around.